What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Files podcast, where we talk about our favorite fantasy series and topics. We are your co-hosts today. You'll notice that Gabe is not with us. He may be joining us in a little bit. But as always, I am Spencer, and this is Bryce from Shelf Centered. I almost said Centered Shelf, and I don't know why.
My Twitter.
Like,
Yeah, go to my Twitter.
yeah, like I don't have dyslexia. I don't know why I got those backwards. But
Yeah.
yeah, Bryce from Shelf Centered is joining me today to talk about the works of Robert Jackson Bennett. And I am really excited to talk about these because I thought I was the only person on the planet who knew this man existed. So thank you for joining me, Bryce. I'm super excited to chat with you.
Thank you. And likewise, I mean, that's exactly you were just kind of talking about these two books
Yeah.
that like I thought nobody had ever read on Twitter. And that's
Yeah.
and that's why it is actually it's centered shelf on Twitter. So that's where you got that, I'm sure.
Oh, maybe that
Um,
is where I got it. Okay.
yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So
Nice.
it's shelf centered on YouTube, and then it was like, I don't have to put numbers in it if I do centered shelf. So and I'm lazy generally. So
Awesome.
but yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today, guys. Like I said, Gabe had some last minute emergencies with some family, so he is probably going to be late. I would assume that he'd be joining us in another maybe like half hour or so, hopefully, as long as his whole thing at home goes well. But anyways, you can reach out to us on Twitter, Discord, and Patreon, which are all linked down in the description. Over on Patreon, you can get exclusive content where usually it's me and Gabe just chatting about random life stuff, or we'll play games. We'll look through Reddit and judge people on there, and do all sorts of other fun games and whatnot for our Fantasy Files After Dark episodes. You can get those at any tier starting at $3 a month. We appreciate your support very much. If you can't support us financially, that's totally fine. We would love it if you would just subscribe and like the video here on YouTube. That helps us enormously, and it gets us out to more people on YouTube through the wonderful, magical, evil algorithm that controls everything. So thank you for doing that. But yeah, with that being said, I think that's all of the housekeeping I have here. I'd like to introduce my friend here, and let's just talk about your channel for a minute. And what do you do over there? You're in the booktube space, so
Yes. Yeah. No, I just I know it's like one thing I just, started watching like Mike's book reviews and Daniel Green and more and just it was like, man, this is so fun just to watch people talk books. It's like all I want to do while I am here at work.
yeah,
But I like to, yeah, it's mostly science fiction, fantasy, sometimes horror. I do kind of like relatively consistent news kind of thing, like Daniel Green does, and Patrick. And then yeah, mostly just kind of updates and lists. I love lists. I like lists. I know they give a bad rap, and rightfully so. But I feel like people find a lot of good. Like that's where I kind of entered the internet, the book sphere back in the ancient times when I went on to like it was forums,
yeah,
and you'd see like everybody listing their top tens or whatever, and then I went deep into that, and so there's that, and so that's what I kind of took to this. I like that there's different books you can find just based on, oh well, I see their taste for this, and they put together another top 10 list or whatever. So it's just been fun, and I sometimes make a goofy skit. I just
nice.
try to joke around and be silly and not take it too seriously. I am wrong probably plenty of times, and people tell me about it, and then I just I go with it, and I try to obviously correct it then, but it's mostly just just enjoying stuff and connecting with, because I don't know if you're the same, but it's not like people in my everyday life read
Mm,
a whole lot of fantasy and science fiction or horror books, and
yeah,
if they read it all.
yeah.
And so it's pretty cool that you can just go onto the internet and find all the people that like the same stuff as you and go hang out with them.
100%. Yeah, there's not there's not too many people that I know that read fantasy or sci-fi or anything like that. I got Gabe into it, my co-host. I got him into
Well
fantasy.
done.
And so that's kind of how the podcast was born. But I have noticed that in like literally the past like 2 years, I've noticed more people that I know reading fantasy and stuff. I feel like it's like inching slowly into the mainstream. I feel like people are seeing shows like, not that these are good shows, I didn't like them either, but people are seeing shows like Rings of Power and Wheel of Time and whatnot. And Game of
Yeah.
Thrones was really the one that did it. Like Game of Thrones
Oh
and
yeah.
House of the Dragon is really kind of what started pushing it into the mainstream. And of course, Lord of the Rings back in the day and whatnot.
I like to think it was all started like originally, not like I don't know. There's plenty. I mean, over the years, there've been plenty of like, your Star Treks, your Doctor Who's, whatever. But like to really push it mainstream, I feel like Community had a good hand in that. The show, the TV show, I don't know. I was a huge
oh,
fan of
yeah.
that show where it was just pushing like it's okay to be a dork.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like, and then the Big Bang Theory, which I'm not a huge fan of that show, but things like that like have
Yeah.
really at least kind of pushed, hey, people go to Comic Cons. They're
Yeah.
actually really fun. Like you don't
Yeah.
have to be like, I don't know, like it's too self-aware. Just go have fun.
For sure. Yeah. And I've been thinking about this the past year a lot. And I'm like, is it that, because I'm 31 now. And so I'm like, is it that fantasy is becoming more mainstream, or is it just that as we get older, people care less about what your hobbies
It's true
are,
too.
you know? And so, like, I feel like, a lot of my friends, who don't read fantasy and whatnot, they'll ask me about it and like ask me like what I'm reading, and I'll ask them about stuff they're into. And I'm like, I wonder if that's just something that happens as you get older and everyone's hobbies become kind of like not like melded, but like, it's not like, oh, you read fantasy or something. It's not really like that anymore, I
Yeah.
feel like. And so I've definitely been taking advantage of that the past couple of years. The fact that I'm not getting wedgies for being a nerd anymore.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And pretty soon I'll be like, get off my lawn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get off my. You kids go read your fantasy books on
Go.
the other lawn.
Yeah, exactly. I got my better fantasy. No, no, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh man, dude, can you imagine in like in like 20 years, we're gonna be judging the new modern fantasy so hard.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
oh,
Oh yeah.
it's all gonna be like terrible to us. It'll be it like fantasy was better in 2010 or whatever. Like
You're like, why did you bring back this trope? We got rid of it,
yeah,
okay?
we got rid of love triangles. Why are you bringing them
Yeah.
back?
You were already killed, okay? You killed them already.
Oh, it's so great. You mentioned doing lists, and I think that my thing with lists on BookTube is that I like them, but I feel like there are so many creators right now who are doing who have read like 20 books, and they're just putting them in different orders in 30 different lists. And it's like the past three videos you made, the first law was number one on all of them. So what are we doing here?
Yeah, that's true. Somebody literally, because I've been doing a top 100 fantasy. So like
Oh my
I'm even
God.
planning on like a top 100 sci-fi. So I'm like, I think I
Ooh,
can do it.
wow.
It's gonna have to be a little more like I don't know. I'm gonna have to actually be like individual books. Whereas fantasy, I can do like a whole series can be one number, and I
Oh
still have
yeah,
plenty to go out of.
yeah.
Sci-fi might have to literally be like 100 books.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, like I might be able to do it. I think I've
Yeah.
read enough. I don't know, but anyway. But I'm just saying, like I literally have had somebody be like, "Have you actually read all those?" I'm like, well, I would hope I'm not doing a list based on a bunch of books I haven't read.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, yes, I have.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, not to throw too much shade across the internet or anything. I love Jay from Captured in Words to death. I love his channel so much. But I feel like in all his top 10 videos, it's the same like King Killer, First Law, Game of Thrones, all the same ones.
And the algorithm loves a good list, you know?
The algorithm loves a good list, so why not churn out the same video over and over and
Right.
over?
Same with King Killer. I've gotten some backlash because I've been more of a naysayer lately. I tried to be for years I was on the, you know what, whatever, let it go. But this
Same.
whole like promised chapter and then get a bunch of people to throw a bunch of money at it and then not
Yeah.
deliver a single
Oh,
chapter has like got me to where I'm just like, you know what? And it even fell in that top. It used to be in my top probably 20 at least.
yeah.
And then it fell. I'm like, I think it was like in the 60s or 70s where I was like, I think this might mostly be because I'm petty, but
Yeah, for sure.
but this gets a petty vote, okay? And it
Yeah.
voted it down.
Yeah, that whole situation, we're gonna talk about Robert Jackson Bennett,
Sorry, yeah,
guys, I
I know,
promise.
right?
But I gotta say, that whole situation made me so boiling mad, especially recently when he did his like apology video. I think you and I both made videos on that.
Yeah,
And man, that that made me so like just boiling angry where I was like, I'm not supporting anything he does until the new book comes out. I'm just not.
yeah,
And like the narrow road between desires came out
yeah,
and people were like talking about it and I'm like, I'm just not getting it. And even one of our
yeah.
co-hosts, Chris, was like, "Hey, what's this book from Patrick Rothfuss? Are we gonna read this?" I'm like, if you really want to read it, then I will read it with you. But otherwise, no, I'm not reading it. Just because
Well, and even that book is frustrating because I feel like it
it's a
just
short
tells us,
story that got
well,
expanded.
and even I know exactly it was already a written and published
Yeah.
short story in another collection. I think it was like Rogues or something,
Yeah,
edited
Rogues.
by George R. R. Martin.
Mm,
And then it just got expanded. And I'm like, this is literally what he's been doing with Doors of Stone,
hmm.
is like tooling around with it. At least I hope, if unless he's done nothing with it. I
Yeah.
honestly do think that he's been tooling around with it too much to where it's like, that perfection is the enemy of progress.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like 100%. I think, like, I don't think he's not working, right? Like, I think he's working.
Yeah.
It's it's just like one of those where it's like, but it ain't happening, or it's just been retooled. And I feel like this narrow road between desires is exactly the like evidence of the same problem to a smaller degree, where he was
Yeah.
like, I got to retool that sort of story, even though it's already done and published.
Right. Oh, yeah. He's like, I got to go back and fix it. It's just like, what are you doing? And, somebody said recently, they said something that got like the conspiracy part of my brain moving. There was a comment that said, what if, what if Patrick Rothfuss's ghostwriter died and now he doesn't know how to finish the series? Like, what if
Okay, that's
somebody
good.
else, like Patrick was just putting his name on it, and then his ghostwriter died. He's like, "What do I do?" He's like trying to figure out how to write this masterpiece. Has no idea. I'm
Oh
like, you
man,
might be on to something. That's like the
that is
best
funny.
evidence I've heard for Doors of Stone so far. So
Oh, that's hilarious. That's great. I mean, it's hard not to just, and it's like, I hate, like, I even have like like I just made up, it was a stupid, just like skit video of like, like, what if Rothfuss fans were Sanderson fans or something like that. And I forget exactly, but anyway, it was like, because, all it is, anytime Rothfuss did anything or said anything over literally the last 10 years, it's always
yeah,
like, where's the book? Where's
yeah,
the book? Are we getting the book?
yeah,
And it's like, then I saw, like, I pretended like, what if they were like then Sanderson fans, which of course they are, like, it's the same fans,
sure.
whatever. But they are like, Sanderson, where's the, oh, it's here. Where's the, oh, it's here. Oh, we got it.
Oh, we got it.
I
That's
mean, and then you
fantastic.
have to like really go to like, oh, well, then where's the sequel to Warbreaker?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's not a lot of room to complain about Sanderson, is there?
So that's why I was just
Uh,
like, I understand that that would be insane to have anything you ever do. You have like 1,000 comments of people being like, "Where's the book? I can't believe the book's in. Oh, I can't believe you're not in the book." Like, it would be obnoxious. Like,
yeah,
I get that.
for sure. I think people started to I think the irritation really started when Patrick Rothfuss was like streaming on Twitch all the time, just playing like video games. He was
Yeah.
doing that for like a
Yeah.
long periods of time. And people were like, "Hey, so for the past like 3 months, you've been streaming every day on Twitch. Like, are you just not writing, or like what? Like, what's the deal
Like,
here?"
are you choosing writing over sleep? We're all hoping.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think the frustration kind of started there. And then I think for me, I would have a lot more forgiveness if he was like nicer to his fans and like could communicate with them in like a healthy way.
Yep.
But he doesn't have a
Because
great
that's,
track record
yeah.
of that.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah. 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 Sorry to derail everything, but yes,
No,
100%.
no, yeah, that was a great one. All right, so despite all the Rothfuss stuff, we are here to talk about Robert Jackson Bennett. Before we do, though, is there anything else you've been reading recently? Any other fun books besides these two that have
Yeah,
caught your
so
attention?
and these ones, I'm a little rusty on, so I'm hoping I've been diving through to old reviews on so to try to actually be able to say something cogent
Sure.
here today. But I have been my Discord encouraged. This is because I'm a sucker for any kind of peer pressure. Somebody on my Discord was like, "Hey, what if we do a buddy read on the Lord of the Rings?" And I'm like, "Well, it is December and it's a great Lord of the Rings time,
Oh, nice.
so." So I'm buddy reading with my whole Discord. Um, we're on Fellowship of the Ring for the month of December. So it's been great. I actually just kind of so I had been reading and just finished earlier this year the Fellowship of the Ring with my twins. And that's just been fun. But it's a slower process that way.
Yeah.
But this has been good. We're going one month, one book. And then also I'm finishing up because I've been doing kind of a buddy read thing with a couple other with J.R. Carroll and J.C.M. Byrne. Um,
Oh, yeah.
the end of the twit or the Witcher. I was a Twitcher. We
The
just talked about
Twitcher.
Twitch. The Twitcher, the Witcher, the Tower of Swallows. So I actually started
Okay.
out. I told them I was like, I'm gonna be the naysayer. I did not like The Last Wish. Then I reread it this year and I loved it. And so it's been a good, like I've actually been loving the series very much. So The Witcher is up there. It's great. So anyway,
Okay,
so
cool.
there's
Yeah.
those are the two that I've been reading right now.
That's so I need to try The Witcher again because I think I tried it around the time that I was maybe like 4 years ago when I was like, okay, I'm going all in on fantasy. And I think I tried it kind of at the beginning of that before I had read things like before I had challenged myself with things like Wheel of Time and like some of the bigger fantasy epics. Um, and yeah, The Witcher just didn't really click for me. But again, I think it was just my initial kind of like I was coming out of like really fast paced books like Night Angel and Dresden
Yeah.
Files and those kind of like really punchy books. And so I did buy The Last Wish. I think that's the one I got on Audible. I bought it on a sale recently, so I'm gonna try it again and check it out. But it's funny that you mentioned Fellowship of the Ring because I read Fellowship on there was a YouTube video that got taken down now, and I'm so pissed it got taken down. They uploaded an audiobook of this guy, Phil Dalglish. Let me see what his name is here right here. Phil Dragish, and he's just a fan. He is a narrator, but he's just a fan of the book, of all the books, and so he made his own, and he put like the the music from the movies in the background. So at
Oh,
the
that's cool.
end, like when Sam is running up to the boat and he's like, "He told me, don't you leave him, Samwise Gamgee," and like the Shire music is playing in the background,
Oh,
and
that's
I'm
so
just
good.
like crying, like because
Oh man.
all of these like emotional beats are happening at once. And yeah, it was fantastic. I had a great time with Fellowship, but I need to
That's amazing.
it was awesome. So
One of my best shorts on my channel
uh-huh.
is me. It was my wife like caught me. I was like first starting out reading the Fellowship of the Rings, and I put the soundtrack on my phone as I'm
Oh.
reading it to my twins. And then she like comes in and I'm like, oh, I'm like, we are geeking out here like crazy. And
Oh,
so I
that's
just like threw it
awesome.
up as a short and it's like, it just like blew up. So I was like, yeah,
Oh, that's
that's crazy.
fantastic. I love that so much. Yeah, but I was on the two towers and all the videos got taken down because it
They
was
just
in
got
like it
taken.
was like part one, part two,
Oh,
part
oh,
three,
that's nice.
and all of the videos got taken down. And so I
Oh, of
reached out to the
course.
narrator. I was like, is there any way I can get a file of this or something? Because
Yeah.
apparently you can't get it on Spotify, you can't get it anywhere else. Um, uh, from what I saw in the comments, is that this like series of videos gets uploaded every now and then it'll get taken down and it'll get uploaded again and get taken down.
Oh man.
And so I got to either just like wait for the next time it comes around on YouTube or something. And Phil gave me a couple options. He was like, there's like Internet Archives. You might be able to find it on there. It's like, okay, so we'll see. But
That sounds brilliant. That's
yeah,
so cool.
yeah, I definitely want to finish the Lord of the Rings books because those were books that I was like, I'm not gonna enjoy those. They're too old. Like I just wouldn't like them. And then I started reading Fellowship, and I like cried multiple times. I
Yeah.
I
There's like a
loved.
magic to him, right?
Oh
Like
my
it's this like
gosh.
I don't know what he did and just he made it just so magical and you get sucked in. I read him in high school
Yeah,
and loved him.
yeah,
And I wasn't like even a reader or anything. I just remember I fell so hard for them. It made me want to go find other stuff like it. I was like, I
yeah,
want to be like immersed in a world like I was for Lord of the
yeah.
Rings.
Oh man, it's so good. There's so many like and especially I think because like seeing the movies first for me, I was like I had like all this visual representation in my mind. And so everything that was happening in the book, I could like
Yeah.
visually see it and I felt like I was there with Elijah Wood and all the other actors from those
Oh yeah.
movies. So yeah, it was fantastic. I had a
That's
great time
cool.
with it.
I didn't even realize that existed.
Yeah. If I can find it again, I'll send it your way. But
Awesome.
um, let's see, what else have I haven't really been reading too much else. I started the second book in the Thrawn trilogy because we're reading
Oh,
that
there
with
you
a
go.
friend.
Dark Force Rising.
Yes, yeah.
It's a good
And
trilogy.
man, I'm not like a big Star Wars fan. Like I largely feel the same about Star Wars that I did about Lord of the Rings. And then when we started reading these books, I was like, dude, I think this is making me a fan of Star Wars. Like I really, really love this. So those have been fantastic. And I kind
It
of
drives me nuts that the new movies couldn't have been like, hey, we've got like we had a whole like research and development for us for many years, and we could take any of the successful stuff in the expanded universe
yeah,
and utilize. And they kind of have done it lately with Thrawn, like I didn't even watch Ahsoka though.
yeah,
I don't I like I'm so tired right now.
yeah,
But and I love Star Wars, so I'm like
yeah,
but that like the Thrawn trilogy, I literally just read the last one this year. So that's why I was like, oh yeah, hey.
yeah, yeah. Nice.
So it's so good, but it's like cool to see like and I don't know if you listen to the
Yep.
audiobook.
Yeah, where they have
They're
the
insane.
sound effects
Yeah,
and
they've got
stuff.
like
Yeah. Oh, it's so
and
good.
like and you're like and the actual like voices of the character like it's insane and you're like
It's
right in
so
there you're like
good.
and you're back with Luke and
Yep.
Leia and that was just like so cool.
Oh,
Anyway, I love them.
dude, it was the best feeling. We talked about, how much they fumbled the new Star Wars on. We posted a podcast episode maybe a couple weeks ago where we go through um the first book, Heir to the Empire. And we were like, I think all of us were pretty much unanimously like, this is clearly better than everything that happened after the prequel movies. Like, this is
Yeah.
clearly the way they should have gone with this. And it's so sad to see it not come to the screen because having read through that, especially that first book, it's like this is like written to be a movie, like the pacing and like how many,
Yeah.
like it has like a 3 act structure and everything, like
Yep.
it's clearly meant to be a movie. And so it really sucks to know that we're probably not getting it, but I've
Not
had a,
anytime soon.
yeah, I've had a fantastic time with them, and it feels so good to be back with Han Solo and Leia
Yeah.
and Luke
Oh
and
yeah.
just the whole game. And I love Mara Jade. So
Oh yeah. And such a good character. Exactly. Like,
yeah,
look, we can like
fantastic.
build up. We don't just have to like only rely on the originals and
Yeah, for real.
every with everything.
But yeah, and so then I guess the only other thing that I've read recently is I had one of those days where I was like, I just need to put something on that is familiar and that makes me happy. And so I
Yep.
put on Blood Rights from the Dresden Files. Have you read the
Oh
Dresden
man.
Files?
Oh yeah. I am
Yeah.
all caught up except I was saving brief cases for like I knew
Mm,
there's gonna be this gap between,
yeah.
Battleground and the next one.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was like, I'm probably gonna have to jump on it soon because I'm
Mhm.
dying for some more Dresden, or I'm like, or either reread, which
Yeah,
yeah, I
do
don't
a,
have time for.
oh man, do a
It's so
reread.
good.
Do you do the audio?
Yeah, the audio with James
Yeah,
Marsters is just, it's
so good.
so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Do a reread, man. I bet if you've only read through once, then I bet doing a
Yeah.
reread there'll be, I think there is way more foreshadowing in Dresden Files than
Oh wow.
anybody thinks there is. Like
Oh
even
yeah.
going back to Stormfront, you'll be like, that's like the outsiders right there. Like
Wow, that's cool.
yeah.
Cause and I know he like built it like his outline from like that's what he had
Hmm.
like day
Yeah.
one,
Yep.
like when he started. So that's cool. Like that makes sense now that you say that, but I remember kind of
Yeah.
just book one through three or like four even
They're
popcorn,
fine. They're
fun
fine. Yeah.
popcorn. I did get one of the things with Dresden Files, I had to like space him out a bit because I got really tired of like going into like he's really chivalrous.
Sure.
I can't believe how chivalrous he is. We have to explain who he is every single friggin' book. Like,
I
we
know
got it.
that.
Like, we've read many books already. Like,
I
at least it
know.
kind of tapers off by like the later books. It doesn't get into like, here's who Dresden is again.
Yeah.
It's like, we're 12 books into this. I don't think we
Yeah.
need that.
I know. I have no idea why he did that. I like I
I think it was just
legitimately
because it was episodic at first. So I
sure.
get it, but at the same time, it was driving me nuts.
Yeah, it is definitely super grating.
But I
Um
love him. I love him.
I
Absolutely.
love him
Like, they're
so much.
some of the
Yeah.
best fantasy out there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They're for our channel, they're like our number one favorite series. And it's what Gabe and I like. I read them when I was like started reading them when I was like 19 or 20. And then I got Gabe into them. And that was the first fantasy book that he read was Dresden Files. And he like binged the whole series.
Yes,
And
good.
yeah,
You're like, well, there's plenty.
yeah, there's plenty of them. That's the best thing. I love whenever you get somebody into the Dresden Files and they're like, I'm really enjoying this. It's like,
Yeah.
well, guess what?
Inject into my veins.
There's so far there's like 17 books and 2 omnibuses of short stories plus a bunch of like comics and other side content that you can indulge in. So enjoy.
And what's important too, I think, is it's not just like some of these series, especially from like the 80s, 90s, were like, hey, I had a really successful trilogy. Let's get some more money.
Right.
Whereas like this one is like a definite, like he planned like 20 something books from day one.
Yeah.
It
Hey,
probably added more because he had to split Peace Talks and Battleground, but
sure.
like anyway, yeah.
But yeah, and like
We clearly haven't
every
talked a bunch in person because we're like geeking out about
I
so many
know.
things. This is great. I'm loving it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm
No, it's
loving every
awesome.
second of this.
Yeah, I do love how like each book is like I don't know. I guess you could argue that like some books are like kind of throwaway books, but I think in every single book there is like a key piece to the overall arc
Yeah.
that you can't miss. Like I think maybe you could miss like the first 3 books or maybe like the first 2 books in Summer Night, but
Yeah.
everything else, like every book has something that you need to get the full picture, which I love that, because I think you're right. I
Oh
think it
yeah.
would have been super easy for him to just write an episode by episode, like Sherlock Holmes style kind of story, and have it not really matter. But
Yeah.
okay, we need to talk about Robert Jackson Bennett. Okay, we're going now. Okay. General thoughts on what we've read for Robert Jackson Bennett. And this is spoiler free for now. We will get into some spoilers a little bit later, but we're gonna do some spoiler free stuff at first. So for me, I've read the Founders trilogy, which is like Foundry Side, Shorefall, I think is the second one, and then Locklands being the third one. Um, and that was the first thing that I had read by Robert Jackson Bennett. And I really liked the first two. And the third book was my least favorite book of, I think it was 2021 or 2022. It was like literally like on our end of the year podcast, we're like, what's our most hated book of the year? And Locklands was mine.
Oh, okay.
And I it sucked because I think that Robert what Robert Jackson RGB what RGB does so well is he gets like these really big ideas like we see in American Elsewhere and kind of like at the end of the Troupe. He has like these really big like trippy ideas, but they work really well as kind of a climax and not an entire book, in my opinion. Like, in American Elsewhere, we see a lot of kind of trippy stuff happening. And then at the end, it's like, oh my God, the heavens open up and everything's kind of crazy. And Locklands, the entire book was just that. And so it felt like you're just going up and up and up and up and up and up. And the levels of insanity by the end are just like not really measurable anymore.
Oh
And
wow.
so you're kind of like hanging on for the ride. And some of it's cool. It's like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. But a lot of it is like I would need a PhD in metaphysics to understand it. And so after reading that, I was like, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know. It's weird how like one book can almost like turn you off to an author and like give you a certain perspective that may not be accurate at all.
Right.
And so I read that one. I was like, I don't know if I like, because I had American Elsewhere and I had the Troupe saved in my wish list. And I'm like, do I want to try these, or like will I not like them, or what? And I was kind of like, I don't know. I put them off for a long time. And then last year, I read at the very end of the year last year, I read The Troupe, and it blew my mind.
You do. Yes.
Oh my God, I loved The Troupe so much. I like straight up cried at the end. Like if people don't know exactly what The Troupe is about, it's basically this kid who is searching for his dad, and he finds out that his dad is part of like a traveling troupe of like singers and performers, and he finds out that there's something kind of like magical about them, and they're in search of this magical song. I forget exactly what it's called that
Yeah.
they're after, but it's something like that.
Yeah, but they're
And
like he's like seeing like there's a puppet show, but I'm not seeing the strings.
yes, yeah, I think
Like,
things get really trippy and weird, and things move that shouldn't, and it's really trippy, but it's not so far trippy where I'm like, I don't know what's happening right now. And everything, the pacing was really good. All of the character work was fantastic. And especially this kid looking for his dad and desperately trying to have a connection with this father figure that he never had. Like, not to get too real on everybody, but I grew up without a father. And so that was something that really, like, by the end, I was just sobbing. Like, by the end, where like everything finally comes together, I was just completely losing it. And so I sent it over to Gabe, and I'm like, you got to read this book, man. You have to read this. And it took him a while to pick it up, but he finally did. And at the end of the book, when he got to like the part, if you've read the Troupe, you know what I'm talking about. When he got to like the part at the end, he called me crying. And he was like, oh my god, this is so beautiful. So yeah, I love the Troupe. I don't know if you have many thoughts on it, but
Oh man, well, what's funny is like you, and maybe that's why we both connected to the troop so well, but same. Also didn't have a father growing up.
yeah.
Um, like, but and it's a bit rusty, but yeah, that's exactly like my experience was the troop was the first that I read, and I was like, Robert Jackson Bennett, one of my favorites, like auto by author easily.
Yeah.
Although now I'm like, I have this weird habit of like trying to save like my favorites for like, I know I'm gonna love this. I just need to read it when I have like a week solid to just blaze through it.
Devour it.
And then
Yeah.
life never ever lets me have that. And I realize slowly that I have to read all my favorites just along the way, or else
Yeah.
I'm never gonna get to them. So
Right.
I've read three books, The Troop, the American Elsewhere, and then City of Stairs for me. I haven't read
Yeah.
the rest of those, but the Troop really was just, oh my God. It was just one of the things, it's just he, Bennett has this way with words that it's hilarious, but moving, but also like he can turn a phrase so well.
Yeah.
It's just, and again, I'm like cracking up 1 second, and then I'm just like moved the next, yeah, and then I'm in tears or something the next, and
100%.
I I really he was a part of this kind of. There's a couple books with these that kind of made me realize like because I didn't think I liked horror. I don't love watching horror movies,
Same.
but
Yeah.
like in my fiction, I was like, I think I like horror.
Yeah.
Like,
Definitely.
I think I discovered I love horror because
Yeah.
there's like some horror elements that I was like scared out of my mind, but like,
Yeah.
oh, this is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
um, this kind of reminds me, there's another book that's a favorite that you might like. It's called The Pilo Family Circus by Will
Oh.
Elliott.
Okay.
It's super weird, creepy, and there's this like anyway, it's the closest I think I can get to the troop, but
Okay.
also a favorite, and again in the weird like category. But yeah,
What's it
that's
called? The Pilo?
so it's Pilo is so it's the Pilo Family Circus,
Okay.
uh,
Oh, here it
and
is.
it's
Yep.
just nuts, and it's so good. But
Oh,
I
I've
remember, I mean,
seen this.
just
People. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna get
yeah,
this. Yeah. Yeah.
and it's great. I mean, it's nutty, but it doesn't have the quite like the like Bennett just has like that way with words. Like he really has a way with words.
Yeah.
So you're like quoting lines like, I looked up my review and I was like I quoted a whole section because it
Hmm.
was just so clever, and I can't like I don't you don't want it's
Yeah.
too long of a quote for me to quote here, but
Sure.
I remember just dying laughing at the scene that I quoted,
Yeah.
and I'm like it just anyway, it's just silly. And then at the next moment, yeah, you're like, I don't know, this like kid is in the vaudeville like background. Like how many books are
Yeah.
set in vaudeville, right?
Yeah.
So like that was kind of like interesting and cool, and kind of like, oh yeah, there's this whole like different like area, and like that this like magical troupe could live in
Yeah.
this way.
Yeah.
Um, and off on their own. And then yeah, American Elsewhere is great. What's funny is his fantasy, which is like my bread and butter. Like I love like I've read more than anything,
Yeah.
is like his traditional fantasy series was actually the least favorite of mine of the books
Same.
that I've read.
Without a doubt.
Which is just funny because it's like you wouldn't think that, but it was just kind of more like it, it was more traditional, like more of a traditional fantasy, like a modern traditional fantasy, if that makes any sense. But
Yeah.
like as opposed to like these, like the troop that gets super weird in places, and I'm like, I'm all for it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think his weirdness works better in these kind of settings
Yeah.
like American Elsewhere and the Troop. I don't know why it just didn't work for me in Locklands especially. And I don't know why exactly that is. I think maybe that's just not what I expect from fantasy. But also City of Stairs, I started to read that. I got probably like a couple hours in on the audiobook, maybe like 2 or 3 hours. And there was something that was just like, I'm like, this is just not like making sense to me. And I don't know if it was just like because I listen at work, so I don't know if it was like just a busy day and I wasn't able to pay
Right.
attention to everything that I needed to. But I was like, this just isn't like clicking with me in the same way that like the both the Troupe and American Elsewhere literally clicked for me on page one. Like from the
Yeah.
beginning, I was completely in. And it took me a while on the other books, even like Foundry Side. Foundry Side is a fantastic book. I think it's the best book in that series, probably.
Mm.
But even that took me a little while to kind of come around and pick it up and really get into it. But yeah, I think American Elsewhere and The Troupe are just fantastic. I I picked up American Elsewhere on a sale, I think a couple weeks ago. It might have been around the time of like
Oh,
Black
no way.
Friday and all that. And I just needed something to read. It was just one of those times where I'm like, I got a little bit of time until our next like scheduled book we need to read. And, I've this has been sitting in my library for like a week or two now. I'm like, I need to check it out. And so I hit play, and right from the beginning, we get these guys that are like, I think a good book in its opening chapter does the thing where it makes you ask questions about the characters and the world, and it makes you want to know more. It's not like having a wall of text just kind of thrown at you and like
Right.
describing everything that's happening around you. It's giving you enough mystery to make you be like, wait, why is this happening? Because the first chapter is the uh the guys from the Roadhouse, and they've gone into Waringer's house to pull him out, and they're like throwing him
Oh,
in the
yeah.
trunk. And on the way out from this house, the driver is like, "Where's Marshall or whatever is or Mitchell or whatever his name is?" He's like, "Where's Mitchell?" They're like, "Don't worry about it. Keep going." He's like, "No, where's Mitchell?" They're like, "Keep going." He's like, "Where's Mitchell?" And they're like, "He fell, okay? He just fell." And he's like, "What do you mean he fell?" They're like, "I don't know. He went into a room and he fell, and he just kept falling and falling and falling and forever falling." And the driver's like, "What are you talking about?" And that's kind of like the end. They go to the Roadhouse and all that. And so it's like you as the reader is like, what did I just step into? I need to know more about whatever happened there. So let me get some more of that. And so yeah, right from the beginning, it totally hooked me, and I had such a great time with this book. I think I I probably enjoyed the ride more on the first read through, and then the second read through, I got more of like the finer details. And I think there's still stuff that I missed, like definitely still some things that I don't fully understand about how it all works. But yeah, I think this is a book that you could read several times and get more out of it each time for sure.
Funny that you mentioned the beginning, because I literally I went back to look through my reviews and stuff, and I'm like, one of my paragraphs starts with, "The prologue grabs you right away. I recommend reading it ASAP.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's free somewhere. Just keep your wallet ready."
Yeah.
Like, so I was just like, because yeah, I remember that. And I don't, because I got it. So I got the copy. My copy is an advanced reading copy I got while I was blogging, and I'm like, holy cow, how did this happen? Coming February 2023, sorry, 2013. And I'm like, holy cow, it's been 10 years, like 10 years
Wow.
since this book came out. How did that happen? But yeah, it's like, I remember that too. And I still do. Like, I remember that. And you're just going, all these questions start building up. But one of the things that I thought, again, in the kind of no spoilers section,
Mhm.
not trying to get into it, but was like, I don't think he like holds like, there's tons of mysteries that start building up, right?
Yeah.
But he also starts letting you in on it pretty early, like pretty quickly for like, about, I mean, before even halfway, you're starting in on,
Yeah.
oh, and like getting some like into these like, what's happening and what's happening next. And you're like, oh, like not a lot of, I feel like maybe Locke Lamora sometimes does this, but if you've read any Scott Lynch,
Oh
but
yeah,
like
definitely.
don't really, they kind of like keep holding the like ball, whereas I like Locke Lamora, like a lot of their plans, their cons will start out with them just telling the person exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, here,
Yeah.
here's, actually it's a big con, just so you know.
Yeah.
I'm lying to you. I've been lying to you. No, not
I-
not quite to that level, but like in
uh,
American Welfare, I just remember being like so much like, oh my gosh, he's like giving us answers. Like this isn't
yeah,
lost. It's not
right.
lost.
Yeah, that was so nice too, because it was like, for a long time you're, well, not for a long time, but like for the beginning, it's just so, everything is so alien, and it keeps up that mystery just long enough to make you like just long enough to where you've enjoyed the mystery and now you're ready for some answers. Like it,
Right,
like
right.
things get revealed at the perfect time to where if the mystery had gone on any longer, I would have been like, okay, I'm getting tired of not knowing anything. And if it had been revealed sooner, I would have been like, oh, I would have liked to have kept guessing for a little bit longer. Um, and I think things get revealed in such an interesting way to where it really gives you the puzzle pieces to figure it out. Like I felt like all throughout the
Oh,
book,
really?
I was kind of like I was taking little pieces of information and I was like, oh yeah, like maybe this is connected to that thing and this is connected to that thing. And I was able to like piece it out as I go, which I think is the
And
sign
I'm a
of
dum dum. I did not get that, so that's good.
I I I don't know. I mean, I don't think I like particularly guessed like the whole like big mystery, but I just think like little things along the way. I'm like, oh yeah, like I've read some Lovecraft. I kind of get it. And like,
Yeah, yeah.
some stuff like that. But yeah, for the people who are only joining us for spoiler free, I guess I'll say that the book is if you haven't read it, the book is basically about this girl Mona, and she has her mom died when she was very young, and then her dad, I think her dad died soon after, or maybe when she was a little bit older. But or no, her dad dies at the beginning of the book. She goes on to
Yeah,
become a
that's why I was
cop.
like, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, her father
But
passes
I was like, the
away.
dad was still there for a while. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he was. And then she finds out that she's inherited this house in this town called Wink. And so she goes out there to kind of find this house, and it's one of those things where she goes out to this small town in the middle of nowhere, and something is undeniably wrong with the town. Like there is something super weird, and people are telling her not to go outside late at night, and people don't know how to like exchange money for goods, and like
Yeah,
they don't understand like the concept of it, and so many other weird things like that, and just like random people standing in parking lots in bunny costumes and just weird stuff. And so every day she's in this town, she's kind of uncovering more and more answers, and she realizes that her mom is from this town or lived there for a while, and she's trying to find more answers about her mom that she never really knew. And so that's kind of like the basis of the story. But it very much becomes like almost like small town murder mystery, but supernatural kind of. And it's very like there's heavy Lovecraftian elements.
yeah,
I love that a lot because I
yeah.
just this year I recently got into Lovecraft, and so when I found this book, I was like, oh, this is exactly what I want. So
Yeah, like this ominous weight is out there, like,
yeah,
and it's scary, but you
it,
have no idea what the parameters of
yes. Oh, that's
what
such
to
a
be afraid of, even.
that's such a
Like,
good way to put it. Yes, that's perfect. Ha- have have you heard of the book Netherwell Horror?
hmm,
If you like this, you would love
okay,
Netherwell Horror. I can't remember. I think it's by Anna something. Um,
here we go. It says Lee Mountford. Does that ring a bell?
yes, that's the one. Yep, Lee Mountford. I don't know why I
Okay, it's
had
on
the
my
name
list.
Anna in there,
Yeah,
but yeah,
there's an N
it's
in there, I'm sure.
but yeah, if like
Okay,
this book reminded me so much of Netherwell Horror, I think you would really love it. And I thought the
okay,
audiobook was pretty good.
okay.
And
All right.
it's very similar in a lot of ways. Um, but uh, but yeah, so I enjoyed American Elsewhere a lot. Like the whole ride was so good. Like all of the characters were fantastic. They were all like different enough from each other to where they had distinct characteristics. Even the guys at the Roadhouse who would otherwise just be a group of
Right.
random thugs, like I felt like they were all pretty different from each other. Um
Yep. I thought
and
there was some Neil Gaiman in there too, like that I felt like I kind of
uh,
compare like Bennett's writing has some of that kind of I don't know, I just Neil Gaiman, I don't know how much Neil Gaiman you've read, but
none.
like he has this way of like making like every sentence is kind of magical, like right?
Mhm.
And this like and so you're kind of just and I felt like Bennett kind of has this writing style that he kind of makes the whole thing kind of part of that mystery even down to the writing level.
Yeah,
And then Gaiman also had that just crazy imagination. I've been reading Sandman lately, and it's like his imagination is like, I mean, there's a reason he's so well loved and famous and everything. His imagination is just insane. And
that's
like
that's
it's
one I
so
gotta
great.
that's one I gotta put on the list for next
Oh
year.
yeah.
Like this
Yeah. And
year was
Stardust, for instance, is great, and so is the movie.
oh cool. Okay.
But it has this kind of just tongue-in-cheek parts, but also like ability to like be serious and get down to that like I don't know like what like emotions, right? And make you feel those emotions. I feel like Bennett, like you were saying with reading this book, is like these are real people here. Some of them are super weird
Yeah.
in this weak place and like
Yeah.
that don't know how to act like normal humans and it like it totally comes out of the page. But then yeah,
Yeah.
you have this like Lovecraftian and I don't I just feel like Bennett's got one of those imaginations that like let him run wild and he'll
Yeah.
come up with crazy stuff and is able to like because that's my problem is like yeah, I might have a crazy imagination. Can I articulate it in a way like that
Yeah.
anyone would even like feel like that was cool or like, oh, good job describing your dream to me that I didn't care about.
Right.
But he can
Yeah.
like make that like a reality and it's so cool.
For real. There's one if I can get to my library real quick. There's he's written this other book called Vigilance, and it's a short story. It's about
I
four
have that one, yeah.
hours. You have it? Have you read it?
hmm I haven't read it. It's one of those
Okay.
like I buy all of his books.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't actually
Yeah,
get to reading them for some reason.
I I listened to like 10 minutes of it, so I haven't like I have no way to say if I thought it was like great or not. But it sounded really interesting. The description is the United States 2030. John McDean executive produces Vigilance, a reality game show designed to make sure American citizens stay alert to foreign and domestic threats. Shooters are introduced into a game environment and the survivors get a cash prize. The TV audience is not the only one that's watching, though, and McDean soon finds out what it's like to be on the other side of the camera. And so it kind of reminds me of like a Black Mirror kind of episode
Yeah.
where there's like this game show that everybody watches and it's like people fighting to the death or whatever, but maybe it's like it, I guess like virtual or whatever, and then the producer of the show, the guy that's making all this money off it, is then put into the game, and it's like now you got to see what you're forcing everybody else to do, or that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so
Yeah. Oh, that sounds good.
yeah, so
Now,
I
have you read his Mr. Shivers and the Company Man ever?
no,
Because those
what's
have been on
that?
my list for ages. They're the like his first published works.
Okay.
Kind of more horror level. They Mr. Shivers one I'm just was looking through Wikipedia. It won the Shirley Jackson Award and then the
Oh,
British Fantasy Award, and then the Company Man won the Philip K. Dick Award and the Edgar Award. Um,
dang. Okay,
anyway,
that's cool.
those have
Yeah.
been on me. And then he's got a new one coming out next year, The Tainted Cup. So
Oh,
anyway,
okay,
sorry, I
sweet.
just went down I went down the Wikipedia, didn't mean to
No,
sidetrack there.
that's awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to work my way through
Yeah.
his list there because everything's been incredible. Before we go into spoilers for a little bit, I did want to tell you since you mentioned that you, I'm assuming, somewhat recently got into horror and are enjoying it. You have to read, if you want to be scared out of your mind, you
Oh my
have to
God.
read Stolen Tongues.
Okay.
Dude, this
Oh
book,
man.
it is so good. Like, even just beyond being like, it's not like a cheap scare. It is like the whole
Okay.
book, there is like a dread to it.
Ooh.
And it is written so well, and I loved the characters, and I loved the mystery just getting very slowly unraveled, like excruciatingly slowly, but it still feels like it's at a good pace.
Okay.
And basically what it's about is it's a guy who, I think at the beginning of the book, they've just gotten married and they're going out to her parents' cabin to like spend like a weekend there or whatever. And his wife is always like kind of talked in her sleep. And then when they get out there, like some weird stuff kind of happens the first night, and like she like gets up and like sleepwalks and does some like weird stuff. And then like the second and third night, he realizes that she's like talking loudly in her sleep. And then like the third night or so, he realized that something else is talking back.
Oh,
And
that's so creepy.
it's something that's like outside the cabin, and they can catch like glimpses of this thing like kind of prowling around the
Oh,
cabin.
dang.
And so they end up like, this isn't spoiling anything, but they end up being stuck there for a while.
Right. Which is a
And
given. Yeah.
yeah, and
Right.
so the book doesn't just take place over like a weekend or something. It takes place over like weeks and months and like a long
Oh,
period
man.
of time of them like dealing with this thing. And it's one of just like the smartest like
Okay.
mysteries that I've read. I
That's
really
awesome.
really enjoyed it.
That's
So
Felix Blackwell, right?
yeah,
I just
yeah.
added that to my
And
list too. Thank you.
you have to do the audiobook too,
Okay.
because
Okay.
the thing that talks back has the creepiest voice.
Yeah.
uh
Thank you. Yes. Okay.
yeah.
Oh
All right,
man.
guys. Well, that is our spoiler free section of this. We're going to go into some spoilers for The Troupe and American Elsewhere. I'm not going to spoil any of like the Founders trilogy or anything for Bryce here, but yeah, we'll definitely be talking about some stuff for The Troupe and American Elsewhere. So I guess what we can do is we'll start with The Troupe. And just, like, I don't really have much to say about it, but there's a couple little spoilery things. So we'll start with The Troupe, and I'll have a chapter marker down below. So if you don't want to get spoiled for The Troupe, you can skip over to American Elsewhere in that chapter marker. So hopefully you guys are using those wisely. And spoilers in 3, 2, 1. You've been warned. All right. Do you have any from, and like I'm very fuzzy on The Troupe as well, but do you have
Yeah.
any like favorite moments that come to mind, or like anything that like sticks out
Well,
necessarily?
and I guess I could share that one part because that's what I was just like. I just remember laughing so hard at this,
Oh
and I'm
yeah.
gonna read it terribly, but it was like it's so funny to me. And um, so it goes. I mean, this is literally like I think it's like one of the first pages. Just gonna look through here. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's like literally on the first page even. It's like someone runs in, or okay, Tofty Thressinger, the first chair house violinist, comes in. George has quit. What? Said Victor, the second chair cellist. George? Our George? George the pianist. Sorry. George the pianist? Asked Catherine, their flautist. The very same, said Tofty. What kind of quit? Asked Victor. As in quitting the theater? Yes, of course, quitting the theater, said Tofty. What other kind of quit is there? There must be some mistake, said Catherine. Who did you hear it from? From George himself, said Tofty. Well, how did he phrase it? Said Victor, asked Victor. He looked at me, said Tofty, and he said, I quit. Like, and then sorry, okay, there was more. Uh, Everyone stopped to consider this. There was a little room for alternate interpretation. Sorry, there was little room for alternate interpretation in that. But why would he quit? Asked Catherine. I don't know, cried Tofty, and he collapsed in his chair, accidentally crushing his rosin and leaving a large white stain on the seat of his pants. Anyway, it was just so silly. Like it's just like this,
Yeah.
like that's the like tongue in cheek. Oh, tongue in cheek. Um, of this is just like from the beginning is like you get this just like they're ridiculous, they're
Yeah.
crazy. But you know, your main character is like very serious. He's
Yeah.
trying to catch up with his dad, and but then he's just like kind of falling into this like magical troupe that
Yeah.
I'm trying to like what else compares to it? Like, because I feel like there's other stuff. That's why I'm like Pilo Family Circus is kind of a similar
Yeah.
vein.
Have you ever
I'm
read
like,
The Night Circus?
I was gonna say, yeah, yes, there you go. That's the Night Circus is one. Yep,
Yeah.
Emily, what's her name? Yeah, yeah. I know
Forget.
what you're talking about though.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, I feel like, the troupe, immediately I was like, I'm enjoying this from page one. I love all of the different characters
sorry,
of the
Aaron
troupe. And
Morgenstern. I was way off.
Aaron Morgenstern.
Sorry.
um, but yeah, I was like, I love all the characters. They're so like all of them are so zany and they have their own like distinct characteristics. There's the guy who like can't talk, and
Yeah,
more about him in a minute. But all of these different characters, and then you kind of get to this point where kind of like the Matrix is revealed, or like they kind of
yeah.
like come out of the
Pull back the
Matrix.
curtain.
They pull back the curtain a bit, yeah, and you start to see that it actually made me think of the Matrix a lot, because they have these very like bland gray guys that are like chasing after them and
Yeah,
like
like the
trying,
agents. Yeah,
yeah, like the agents. And that reminded me a lot of the Matrix, and they're searching for like this one song, like I forget what they called it. It was like the song of creation
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
something.
But
um
it's like the one that yeah they'll like solve all the problems and
yeah,
yeah,
and he's like, every now and then we get a piece of the song, and when you get to see like what that looks like, the song, the way it's described is like it is creation itself, like
yeah,
it is the power of like biblical creation. And
yeah,
I love that so much. I love the just the idea that there is this force out there that they are searching after, that is a beneficial force for humanity. Like it is a unequivocally good thing, yet you have this absolute shithead looking for it. Like
yeah,
you have this guy who is just such a dick, and he's like just like this old, I can't remember if he was like an alcoholic or what. I think he was, but just like the guy that the kid thinks is his dad, and
right.
he's so mean to the kid, and he's
I
such
know.
a,
Just like dismissive.
oh god, he's just like the worst person. And you feel for the kid like the whole time, because he's like, this is the only dad I have, so like I have to try to make it work with this man. He may not be perfect, he may not be like the dad that I was hoping to find, but like I need to like try to figure this out with him and try to like make this work. And the whole time he's just trying to do like everything he can to like appease this man and to fit in and to like be part of the group. um which makes it an absolute roller coaster at the end when he finds
Yeah.
out that that's not even his dad.
Yeah, I know, right? I
Oh
remember being
my
like,
gosh,
yeah.
that blew my mind. And then like the saddest moment in the book
It's almost like
is,
a like somewhat of a unreliable narrator, right? Because you're
oh
like,
yeah,
of course it's his dad. Like he believes it. I'm
yeah,
in
he
there.
believes it, yeah. And it's then you get to the point where you find out that the like he finally finds out that the guy who can't talk is his dad. And throughout the whole book, the I forget what his name was, but he kept giving the kid gifts. And the kid eventually got to the point where he's like, this is getting a little creepy. Like, I think he's like coming on to me or
Yeah.
something weird. Like, this is getting a little bit odd. Like, stop giving me gifts, man. Like, I don't want, like, whatever you're
Yeah.
trying to sell me, like, it's not what I want. And like the utter destruction on the mute man's face is so tragic when you look back on it in hindsight, like what he just said
Yeah.
to his dad. Could you imagine not being able to tell one of your kids that you're their dad and you're trying to like show them love and they're like, dude, get away from me. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know what is going on with you. Just like like how much that would wreck you. And like, oh
Especially
man.
when that's like all he's trying to do, right? Like George
Yeah.
like is literally with these people to find his dad, and
Yeah.
that's like the whole point of it.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's
like he's
like
right
you missed
there.
the mark though.
Oh God.
Yeah.
It's so tragic in such a utterly beautiful way. And like the whole time, so not only the whole time this the mute guy is trying to look out for the main character, but also he's the one that is holding the songs. There needs to be a person, if I'm remembering correctly, there needs to be a
Yeah, I think
person
you're
that
right.
actually like holds these songs, and that's why he can't
Isn't that
talk.
why he can't speak? Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, that's what
because
I
if
was
he
like. That's
talks,
why
it
he
all
can't
like
talk.
comes out.
Yeah, then it's gone. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so I loved that idea. It's so like perfectly tragic. And then at the end, um, like he realizes that that's his dad, and I forget exactly what happens, but the actual dad does something at the end that is like self-sacrificing to save his son. I can't remember if he's like holding something back or what
Yeah,
it
it was
is.
something with it, and that's where I'm like, I'm so rusty in this.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you ever read any Dying Earth by Jack Vance.
Huh.
In that the wizards in it can only hold like up to 5 spells,
Okay.
essentially. So they only have like 5 spells at their disposal.
That's
And so
kind of
it's kind
cool
of like,
though.
I don't know, that kind of like idea of like, I don't know, like, yeah, you can't speak, right? You can't anyway,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
not really, it's semi-close, but not really.
that's cool though.
But it
I
just kind of reminded me of that.
That's like a cool magic idea though. I'll have to check that out. What's it called?
Yeah, yeah. That's
Jack
the Dying Earth, Jack
The
Vance.
Dying Earth by Jack Vance.
Yeah,
Are
George
they
R. R. Martin is a huge fan. That's what got me onto it.
Oh, okay. Are they like modern or classic or
Classic, very classic
Oh, okay.
sci-fi. Like
Oh,
the
okay.
Earth is dying, and then there's all it's like it seems like science fiction, but it's really fantasy. Like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
it's all just like wizards. And anyway, there's a great
That's cool.
anthology that George R. R. Martin did called Songs of the Dying Earth, where people like
Oh,
write
yeah.
Dying Earth stories, and it's so good. It's one of my favorite anthologies ever.
Oh, sick.
So good.
Okay. I want to
Anyway,
check these out. But yeah, I think, at the end it was so beautifully tragic with like his real dad dying, and I think
yeah.
they do get to share a moment where
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
like,
That's like that last. That's the one that I remember being like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
like,
oh my God. And then in the end he's like, he gets married, and I can't remember if it was to somebody that we had already seen in the story or if it was just some random like him married later on.
yeah,
But he's sitting on his porch and he uses the song and he like recreates everything and like fixes, I can't remember if he fixes everything, but he fixes what he needs to.
right.
And it was so beautiful. I can't remember, there was some side effect that he had at the end, and I can't remember if it was like him, if he like had part of the song with him still or what. I'm very, like you said, I'm very
Is there like a
rusty on it.
memory thing? I'm trying to figure out that
That's
too
what
because I
I'm thinking.
forget it.
I'm like, I think there was a memory thing. I think it was that,
Like
and people are gonna yell at me in the comments if
I
I'm
know
wrong,
exactly. I
but
know. That's where I'm like, it's bit. I was rusty. I
yeah.
know.
But I think it was at the end he could either choose to, it was either memory or he could choose to like have his father back or he could choose to like recreate everything. I remember there being a
All right.
difficult choice, and he made the choice to like recreate like all of the earth. But
Right. Right.
yeah, I just remember like those last couple paragraphs, just like it was one of those books where like I finished it and I just kind of like sat there for a couple minutes,
Oh yeah.
and I was just like, wow, like I did not go into this expecting it to be like that intense and beautiful. I still tell people I think it's one of the most beautifully written endings I've ever read.
Yeah.
Like it had me crying, it had me just like all the emotions everywhere, like it was so good. But
Yeah, I remember. So I went, again back to my Goodreads review, and I was I remember because I remember this because I wrote it in here, but I remember this emotion. But like finishing it up, having these like crazy emotions after this, and just being like, Robert Jackson Bennett is so brilliant. He's such a brilliant author. And then coming on here, and they were like hardly any reviews of this book, or let alone
Yeah.
ratings. And I was just like, what? This is a tragedy. And even still, so at the time that I wrote my review, there were only, I said, where is it? 188 ratings of the book on Goodreads. Now it's still only 2000 something. But I'm
Yeah.
like, that's nothing
Yeah.
because it's such a good book. It's so
Yeah.
powerful. Obviously, it's been like over 10 years for me, so I'm really reaching back, but I can remember
Yeah.
some of those emotions. I can't remember the like play by play. Some of
Yeah.
those emotions will stick with me. And I just remember being like, it's just so much fun. It's such a fun just romp through this like era that you don't really get into with fantasy or anything
Yeah.
vaudeville. I mean,
Right. Yeah. I honestly, I'm still not even entirely sure what vaudeville is. Like, is it,
yeah.
it's an era,
Well, it's like, I mean, like, I want to say I'm going to get this wrong, but it's like
a
essentially the
style.
1920s or something like that.
Oh,
It
okay.
was where they had vaudeville. It was like a kind of a play around, um, like performances, as we see in there.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
Here we go. I'm gonna Google it to get it right. Oh, yeah, okay. Ha! I barely was right. 1880s to the end of the 1920s. So I like I had the end of it.
Yeah.
But like you kind of have like, oh, this is talking about like Bob Hope and American Variety. And anyway, just some things that were like variety show and kind of things. That's why we have like the puppets and the puppet show, and you have the different kinds of of things. It's like, I mean, not quite like there's the three ring circus became like, the
Right.
greatest showman, all that stuff, but like
Right.
kind of almost like the precursor to that,
Yeah.
I want to say, and maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe that came after.
Nice. Yeah, I like the whole idea behind really anything in like the 1920s or that kind of
They're about
era.
the same time. Sorry.
Yeah, because I I feel like we don't really get enough of like that kind of style or that like era at all. There's not I mean really we don't really get anything from like even like the 1800s uh
Right.
anything in that kind of time. So let's talk some spoilers for American Elsewhere. We don't need to go through even half these notes. I just have them
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I copied them over from my phone. But one thing I thought was good about the book, kind of starting at the base level before getting into any of the story stuff, I thought the narrator was pretty good. I did the audiobook. He did a lot of different voices and stuff
Sorry.
that I liked. And the one thing though that he would do, the voices and the narration itself was really good, but sometimes two characters would be having a conversation back and forth with no like he said she said in between, and
Oh.
he would get the voices mixed up, so character
Ah.
one would say something and then it was supposed to go to character two, but he would still use character one's voice and then go to
Oh
character
man.
two on the so sometimes they got switched up quite a bit, and
Because I
that was
struggle with
like,
that just like reading it sometimes, but man, to have a narrator like using the wrong voice for stuff, I'd be
oh
like, oh,
yeah.
that would be totally confusing.
Yeah, I was like, what is going on right now? And
Oh,
then
that's funny.
certain words like, I understand like people don't always know how to pronounce everything, but instead of and maybe this is where it is pronounced in some places, but I've always heard it pronounced tinnitus, and he called it tinnitus, and I was like, what? And so that happened a couple times where I'm like, I don't know if he's like pronouncing some of these words correctly. That's the only example I wrote down. There was a couple others,
Oh
but
yeah, no, that'll drive you nuts, especially
yeah,
because in your head like that in my head, and then you're like every time it comes up, you're like, ah.
yeah. It's like, what are you doing? But yeah, overall, I think he did a great job, and Yeah, what were
Uh,
some of your like again, I know you're probably a little rusty on this one, but do you have any favorite moments that come to mind
Gosh,
from,
this one's super. I know. I'm like, um,
or like just like
I I
themes
I
or like
generally, yeah, and
storylines?
that's where I'm kind of going with, and I wish what's funny is one like my reviews for these, one of them was like, I had a better review, and then Goodreads lost it, and so then you
Oh
get this
no.
garbage one. My general kind of, again, it's mostly just the feelings of reading it, and it's that same. And again, maybe I could just leave to the spoiler talk, but I do remember the kind of the monster kind of when that kind of stuff was happening and just being like, I like fear, like real
Yes.
fear
Yeah.
and strong fear and being like, I think I like this though, because it got me
Yeah.
like I was reading my eyes out with this
Yeah.
thing. I just was I mean, the pages were just flying by and I'm like, oh my gosh. Um, I remember, let's see, because that's what I was trying to come up with for today. Because I was just like, what else do I actually have to bring to this other than to go,
Sure.
uh-huh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right, uh-huh, yeah, that's good. I remember that now.
Yeah.
Uh, now that you say that, but no, because the thing is, yeah, that's what Bennett does well is those characters, like in the Troupe, for instance, the Troupe where they're like each is just so crazy zany, like Wink is a weird place. It's like the
Yeah.
Stepford Wives. It's like
Yeah.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers kind of a thing where like I've really felt that like kind of older, like it was going for like an older, I don't know, like movie type,
Yeah.
that you're kind of back in this like like you go
Twilight
from like
Zone.
modern, yeah, to a Twilight Zone exactly kind of area, and
Yeah.
you're just like, what is, it's like something's weird, but like I don't know how to exactly put my like finger on it. And is it weird enough, or is it just a small town could be weird,
Right.
like
Right.
certain small towns have their things. Or is it, yeah, Stepford Wives or Body Snatchers where like there's something underneath it all.
I loved some of those scenes where like the these like elsewhereians, like these like interdimensional
Yeah.
beings are inhabiting this body and they don't quite understand the human part of it. Like they don't understand
Right.
like what they're supposed to be doing as a human. One of my favorite one of them was the guy and his wife. They're both like, body snatchers in this scenario, and he every single day all day he's working underneath his car, and the wife is standing there with like lemonade on a tray that he never drinks just because they think that's what they're supposed to be doing as humans. And she stands there for so long that like blood is running down their driveway from her feet
Oh
because
yeah.
she's got like these crazy blisters on her feet, and he's underneath the car. And finally, the narrator kind of tells us what's actually going on with the car. He's like, the car is beautiful on the outside, but what most people don't know is it's not drivable in the slightest. There's a there's nothing resembling a engine or alternator
Yeah.
or cooling
Yeah, I
system or anything
remember
like
that.
that, but there is three ceiling fan motors. There's about 12 feet total of PVC pipe. There's 13 AA batteries and like all this stuff. He's like tons of like duct tape and glue and all this stuff. And he's just under there like putting all these random things together because he just thinks that's what you're supposed to do. And and his wife is like, it's such a great car. It is a beautiful car. And just because she thinks that that's what she's supposed to do in the role as a wife, and it was so hilarious. I love those scenes. Or like,
Yeah, that's why I think Bennett just shines at that like weird, quirky character. And like quirky to like the crazy amount, like times
yeah,
10.
yeah. The one thing that I didn't really, I don't want to say I didn't like it, because I think it is cool when you have some things that just aren't explained. But in this case, I feel like there was throughout the entire book, they're collecting these rabbit skulls, and the people at the roadhouse are collecting these rabbit skulls, or being asked to at least. And I don't think it ever gets explained what they are or why they're needed, because the thing that ends up summoning the mother in the end is like these blocks, of like stone or metal or whatever they were. But then they keep like they're having
Yeah, and it wasn't really like a court like a we think that this is what humans would do, even like
right,
at
yeah,
least that I don't remember getting that sense from that either. Now that again,
yeah,
you're bringing back memories, so I'm I'm slow to
yeah,
on the update. I'm mostly a cheerleader here.
sure. It was something that Ganymede, the character that had like the white hat and like the blue suit and all that kept coming back over and
Oh
over.
yeah, yeah.
It was something that that character kept asking them to do, was to go into this tunnel and grab like these bunny skulls and put a certain amount of them in a box. Sometimes it would be like very specific numbers, like sometimes it would be two or sometimes it would be three. And I never really understood, having read through this twice, I never really understood what the skulls were like being used for, or like why they were needed, or like where they came from or anything. Um, and so I
It was
think,
almost like a we like this will be creepy, but then forgot to like
yeah, then forgot to like
like
pay it
like
off.
say yeah, pay
Yeah.
it off exactly.
So yeah, I'm still not entirely sure like what that was. If anybody in our comment section
Yeah, I
knows
need to
what the
reread
bunny
this so
skulls
bad.
were, um,
You're making me want to reread it so bad though.
yeah, you
This
should,
is great.
man.
I need to.
Oh,
I'm dying.
I had such a good time with it, and like you said, the monsters. I feel like I never quite understood Lovecraftian cosmic horror until I read this, to
Right. That's a good point.
where I'm like, oh, I see how these beings are like outside of reality. Like they're not from like another planet. They're like outside of reality
Yeah. And then like
altogether.
how do you describe something that like there aren't words for?
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of what I feel like is what's trying to be portrayed is like there aren't words for this. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
there's a really great scene where there's a really great scene. I don't think I have the actual quote. I think I just paraphrased it. Parson and Miss Benjamin are showing Mona like what their true selves are. And again,
Oh
this
yeah.
is paraphrased, but I wrote down, we only know the things we know because of comparison. Like we only know what green is because we have blue to compare it to, and kind of like judge from that. And just this idea that everything is relative
Yeah.
to what we have in front of us, but there was nothing at all to compare this sight of what these like beings actually are. There's no human equivalent of comparison. And thinking
Right.
about that, it's like, man, I'm sure this is probably something that you've noticed as a father. I can't say that I have, but like teaching a baby, I'm sure you like teach them one thing, and then from
Yeah.
that you kind of branch to like another thing, and then by comparison they learn the next thing.
Oh
um
yeah, we have a whole book. I mean, many books actually. Opposites.
right, yeah.
Night, day. Like,
Right, yeah.
but the problem, oh, that's a great point that you make because I remember like early on, my kids are, you know, 8 to 13 now.
Mm.
But I remember early on when we were reading those books, it would be like, all right, these are opposites, but there needs to be something that's like not everything is an opposite. You don't go to the exact extreme.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
all kids know is there's like 100% on the gas or they're
Zero.
passed out zero. Like, but it's like there needs to be like this like lesson in, well, where's the middle?
Right.
Where's the like you bring that out, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly, you're right. And
Yeah.
but also so many times, how many times it's I don't know, for me, because I've thought about it too much, but like where you're at like a place and you're like, I'll take a small drink or whatever, and they're like, oh, we only have medium, and I'm like, I meant the smallest. Like
Yeah.
I don't like you're calling it medium, but it's all comparative, and
Right.
therefore
Oh, it's such a good
I
point.
that's the smallest one you have, so technically that's a small, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
That's such a good point. That's such a good point.
and then don't get me started on Starbucks. No, just kidding.
Also, what's crazy? This is such a tangent, but have you ever, do you eat at Wendy's very often? Dude,
From time to time.
for some reason, I just kind of started eating there in the past like year or so, and their small is like a big freaking cup. Like their small is like a massive cup. And so then it makes me think, who is ordering the large here?
Yeah.
Because
And how
that's
much
like
are
a
they
two
peeing in
liter.
a day?
Yeah. I was like, dude, these cups are so massive. There's no way. Like I can
Oh
barely
man.
get down a small, let alone I'd never be able to drink a large. That'd be wild.
Oh man. And I lived in Europe for a little bit and they're like they don't even like like they can't even like contemplate.
Oh
They're
yeah.
like, I mean, the size of a drink that you get there is like
It's
there it
like
is. That's your
tiny.
drink. Like
Right.
we don't like drink insane amounts.
Right. Yeah. That's so funny.
Like that's the size. There's not like large size.
Right.
It's like that's it. I don't-
Oh, let's see. What else do I have
This is
here?
good. You have some really good notes on here. It's bringing back so much. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Right. Yeah. I love I love this. I love the guys from the Roadhouse. They were all just so completely foul in the best ways.
Right. I remember that too. Oh
And
man.
there's like the one guy that just is doing like literally piles of cocaine, and he just like is like describing it. It's like, no, this guy, like, he didn't do a line of cocaine, like he didn't do like a little bump of cocaine. This guy
We're
was,
talking Montana
yeah, he
levels.
used, they used the word pylon of cocaine.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm not sure what that means, but that sounds so big. I just picture like a pyramid of cocaine. And so
Right.
this dude is just doing a ton of it, and his scenes were so funny because all of his dialogue was just so far out the window. And he's with Zimmerman, and they're struggling to get David Dord is the guy
Oh
doing
yeah.
the cocaine, and Zimmerman is struggling to get him to get the body out of there because what they called it, the wildling, the one with like the top hat and like the blue suit and all that.
Oh yeah.
He had like
Man.
he had like
Oh my,
he had like
I
blown
can't
his
remember.
brains out. Yeah. And so they're like trying to hide the body because I guess that's their job. Whenever this happens, they like throw the body into this ditch. And so David is like, he's like struggling with it, and he's like talking throughout the whole thing, and Zimmerman is like, just drag the body, stop talking, like just drag the body. And George says, wait a minute, this is that creepy motherfucker of Boland's. And then Zimmerman says, is that a fact? Please grab this creepy motherfucker's legs. And I just love the back and forth. Like I could just so picture like these two, like it sounds like something that would be like in a mafia movie. Like,
Right.
really, please grab this motherfucker's leg. Like I
Like
love it.
this is what we're supposed to say.
Yeah.
So
Oh
I
my
just
gosh.
imagine like Bennett coming up with just these scenes like how much fun he's just having
Yeah.
like with this stuff. Like that's
Oh
what
my
I
gosh.
and that's I think a lot of too where I just love his writing. There's another author I think that has this kind of fun is what's his name? Um dang it. He did the Gone Away War, Harkaway, Nick Harkaway,
Huh.
where it's just coming up with like crazy situations. I can just see and you can just feel the like fun like oozing out of the book and you're
Yeah.
just having fun with it.
Yeah, and it really shines, especially later when Bennett is writing, or when Mona goes to the theater. Do you remember this? And
Oh
first
yeah, yeah.
is like up
I
on
remember
the
the theater
screen.
was like crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's talking to her through what is it, Grace Kelly or whatever, or not Grace Kelly,
Yeah, yeah.
Jean Kelly or
No, it's
something.
but yeah, one of the
Yeah,
exactly.
one of the
Now I'm like, I
Kellys.
don't know my yeah.
but but I'm like, man, that was such a creative way to have this like interdimensional being talk to a human. And like he just made a movie theater and decided to talk to her through Holiday in Paris or whatever the movie is.
Yeah.
And man, I just thought, I'm like, man, that was really cool. I can't say that I've seen anything like that in a book before.
Yeah, well, and it just you think of like how I mean, yeah, I mean just how would some entity that doesn't understand us as much as we don't understand it
Yeah.
uh try to do that?
Yeah.
And like, oh well, they stare at this all day. They enjoy this thing.
Right.
So that makes the
Yeah.
most sense, you know?
We'll just put ourselves up on there. Oh my God. Yeah, and then I think shortly, is it shortly after that we see how Ganymede got started? And it's just this because like, do you remember how they all like got out there? Like the mom decided to that she was just tired of where they were living, and so she's like, follow me and we'll go to this new place, and then kind of like not trapped them
Or
intentionally, but she was trying to bring them to a
it's what
new
happens.
place. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they all get stuck in like these human bodies, and the moment that Ganymede realizes that he is like stuck in this thing, he kills himself in like dozens of different ways, like 100 times, and because he was trying to get back to like where he came
Isn't that
from.
how they have to body jump?
Yeah, they have to
That's like the
like
only way
die.
to,
Right,
yeah.
yeah. And so, but the narrator, like the overall like omniscient narrator, is describing these events, and Ganymede would like jump into a person like in the middle of their family like having dinner, and Ganymede would like realize he's in a body and like shove his hand into like the garbage disposal in the sink, and then shove his other hand in there to like try and like
Oh
off
yeah.
himself, freaking the families out. And it specifically mentions in the book
Yeah.
that this happened many, many times in
Yeah.
front of the vessel's like friends and family. I'm like, dude, that would be so scary.
So
Like,
creepy
oh man, it actually reminds me a lot of
and messed up.
yeah, it reminds me a lot of Soul Survivor by Dean Koontz. Um,
Oh,
that's another really good one with like some sort of body jumping type shenanigans. And it's horrifying. Like it is super super scary.
uh,
At least in some scenes. Like the whole book isn't like terrifying, but there are some scenes that are really really freaky. Um, but let's see, what else did I have here?
hmm, I haven't read that. I read some Dean Koontz, but I'm like, huh, I'm adding
I
to my list, you jerk.
yeah,
My
I
TBR is so big. Come on.
yeah, I really love Dean Koontz. I've tried some Stephen King, but Stephen King has never really quite clicked for me outside of like 11/22/63.
That's a good one.
I really loved that book, but
The
his other
Dark Tower got me to see Stephen King,
okay,
his fantasy western.
okay, yeah,
Because I didn't click with The Stand when I first read it. But
okay.
anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, no, you're good. I tried we read The Gunslinger and didn't really like it, but
Yeah, that's it.
I think I need
The
to read
drawing
the
of the
next one.
three is the best one.
Yeah.
Is the one that gets you into it.
Yeah, I think I need to, because I've heard from a lot of people that The Gunslinger was like apparently like it was printed in
Yeah.
parts in like articles, and so it's not like a
Yeah, I think it was the magazine of science fiction fantasy or something like that.
yeah,
And or fantasy and science fiction. And then yeah, it was kind of collected. So it's a little disjointed and it was like revised a little bit.
yeah,
Definitely, well, a lot probably.
yeah,
But yeah, it's the roughest of them. And then once, yeah, the second when you get into it. But I didn't mean I yeah, with Dean Koontz, I only read Odd Thomas, which is kind of a urban fantasy kind of thing.
yeah. Yeah, I love Dean Koontz. I've read so many of his books at this point. I can't even
Okay.
remember which ones I've read, but definitely the two that are the best, or the three that are the best, are Watchers, Soul Survivor, and Lightning.
Okay.
And Lightning is good if you want like some time travel-y kind of stuff. Soul Survivor is good for the more like paranormal, like supernatural mystery kind of things. Um, and then Watchers is like science experiment gone wrong,
Ooh, okay.
and it has a not a talking dog, but like a hyper intelligent dog, a very
I
good
like
boy.
that.
Yeah, so
I
yeah,
like that.
yeah, those are my three favorites
Have
from
you,
him.
speaking of that, have you read the Jim Butcher's Aeronauts Windlass, the Sitter
No,
Spires?
I've been meaning to. It's one of those
Because
things, like we were talking about this earlier, where
yeah,
we take the things that we really want to read and we put them up on this shelf, and we're like, someday I'll have the time to read this. And
yep,
it's like
every time.
you have to just do it,
Yep.
because
Life's not gonna let up.
yeah, I'm like, Way of Kings has been sitting on my shelf. I keep telling myself that someday I'll have 40 hours to read Way of Kings.
Yeah.
And I keep
And
telling
it's good for
myself,
views.
yeah, oh
So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
it's
And
my best viewed video on my channel.
yeah, I can't wait to get to it. We're doing on the podcast, we have a series of videos called Into the Cosmere. And so
Oh, there we
far
go.
we've done we did Tress of the Emerald Sea, we did Elantris, we have Warbreaker in the pipeline. We're actually doing that with
Yes.
Bookborn, which will be really fun.
Oh, that'd be great.
And then Way of Kings is next. And that'll give me like an excuse to
Nice.
like read it for the podcast.
That's great.
But yeah, I can't wait, because I'm like, man, I bet that's when our channel is gonna blow up, when we start
It's a
doing
good one.
when we start doing more Sanderson.
Oh
So
man, you guys are so close to 1,000 too. So it's like,
I know,
oh
we're
man,
so
I'm dying.
close, please. But
Sorry, I get us really distracted here because
no,
I am like, I feel bad because I'm like, man, I thought I was gonna be remembering so much more about this
oh
book,
no,
and
you're
it's
fine.
like you've had to like really pull the whole thing along here, and you're like, why did I even invite you here? You're dead weight
No,
completely, and I'm like,
no,
oh, let me get us distracted again.
no, this is great. This was initially gonna be like a 5 minute video that I was gonna just record. So I'm
Oh
super
God.
happy to have somebody here to like
Yeah. I'm like, cheer,
bounce
go.
stuff off.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's a thing too. I remember that thing.
Right. Uh, um, but I guess I guess some things that I thought were pretty interesting is there's a point in the story where at the beginning of the story we find out that Mona has this daughter, and well, she was pregnant with a daughter, or pregnant with a child of some
Right.
kind, and she gets in a very bad car accident. She gets hit by a truck, and she survives, but the child dies. And then later in the story, Mona gets captured by Ganymede, and Ganymede is like, they somehow use her blood and are able to open up using like the mirrors. They're able to open up like a portal to an alternate timeline Mona, who
Oh yeah.
yeah, who didn't get hit by the truck and has the baby, and the baby's like there in the crib. And so they open up this window, and Ganymede goes in and like grabs this baby, but it's it's an alternate timeline Mona. So by the end of the story, Mona like kind of wrestles the baby from her at some point and like gets it back, and she's like, maybe I should just keep the baby because I didn't get to have mine. And then she's like, well, there's that Mona in that other timeline that was completely distraught when she came back into the room and saw that her baby wasn't there. And she's probably like hating life right now. So
Yeah.
I need to return the baby, even though it's my kid too. Like, I took it from a different Mona. And I like that idea. I like the idea of like playing with different timelines and having to
Yeah.
consider, your other timeline's best like benefit, I guess. But what I think would have been cooler, or more cool, is if is if Mona had, if from the beginning, from the beginning of the story, from our Mona's perspective, in her like initial narration where she's just kind of talking about how her life has gone up to this point, it would have been cool if she had been like, yeah, my husband and I divorced after we lost our child. And no, we didn't lose our child to death or anything. One day she was just gone. Like, one day she was in her crib and she was just gone. Like, what if
Yeah.
that had been our timeline? And then we get to the point where she like divorces her husband, leaves the police force, goes to Wink, and then Ganymede captures her, and Ganymede reaches in to take the baby, but it's actually her in that window. Like, she's like, that's how her baby
Oh
was
yeah.
stolen, and it's like a whole time loop. And so then she like gets her baby back in the current day. That would have been so crazy. I'm like, why did he
Oh
not write it
man.
that way? That would have been so awesome.
Yes.
And it's like I still like the way he wrote it, where it's like an alternate timeline and she has to like give the baby
Yeah.
back. But I'm like, dude, I'm a big sucker
Yeah.
for time loops. I'm like
Have you
that.
seen, have you read like Dark Matter by Blake
Oh
Crouch?
yeah,
Because
dude. I
that's another one,
love,
yeah, like that. Or
yeah,
like Rick and Morty do that too.
yeah.
And the,
Or like
but that's,
have you read
yeah.
Recursion by Blake Crouch?
Yeah, 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 that
Oh,
too. That, yeah,
dude.
yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
my
there you
God.
go.
I love
Yeah,
those two books. I think both of those books made my top five for last year. Because I love them so much. Like they're
they're
such
so
good
good.
books. Oh my God.
No, I agree with you. That time loop thing is so good. But I mean, I'm trying to think through. I'm like, yeah, that would, I mean, I know because that could totally work. That, oh man, that'd be good. But
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I'm thinking through the implications of that because that's one that I like. Yeah, when they kind of, but you almost, it makes you do want more, right? More from like more time loops, more
Right.
like what else can we do with this concept?
Yeah. So yeah, I guess overall, I just love this book. I think like everything about it clicked with me. There was never a point where I was like thinking that it was going on too long. Like every chapter kind of revealed something new. And I like the way it ended up with Mona and Gracie kind of riding out into the sunset. Gracie was the girl that was like, like dating first or whatever, like
Yeah,
that whole weird situation. And they're able to leave the place together. So I would love to see them like show up in a future book, even if they're not like the main characters. For some
right.
reason in my head, like I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these books are kind of in the same like in a shared universe or something. And so I would love to see them pop up in whatever he's got going next. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I
But
mean, why couldn't the Troop and like, for instance, American Elsewhere? I mean, they're even like completely different time
right,
frames, right, in
time
the world
periods,
and
yeah.
to time periods. Yeah, that could totally work that out. But I like that. I know, and I like. Yeah, I do remember that kind of ending there and just being very satisfied
Yeah.
with them. But yeah, I like, man, this is where I'm like, I've been appreciating just the reminiscing with you on this.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's about as much as I've been able to provide. I'm
For sure.
sorry.
No, no, you're good. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. And we were talking a while ago about getting you on for a creators corner episode.
Yeah.
Do you know what these are?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I've watched them. Yeah,
Oh, cool. Yeah, so we definitely want to bring you on for that because it would be super fun just to sit
that'd be
down
really
and
fun.
and then we can talk about whatever. We can go off topic all over the place. When Bookborn came on, I went on for about a half hour about why the Titanic is the best movie ever made. So we can really go wherever you want with
I
those
know we
episodes.
already hit some Rothfuss, some Star Wars. Like
Yeah.
we were trying.
Yeah.
I was trying to pull you away.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm super excited to talk with you in the future. And next time Gabe will show up,
Uh,
I feel so bad for him and like for you, I
yeah.
guess, because I'm like, oh, can we push the recording out because that's when Gabe can do it? And then he just like hits me up last minute and he's like, dude, I got this family thing and I'm just stuck.
Oh
And I'm
man.
like, all right.
No, it actually ended up working actually well because I had my own internet issues on my side, and then it like they fixed, and
Oh,
I didn't do
nice.
anything about it. Like I didn't do anything other than,
It's
is it
just like,
working? Is it
oh,
working?
it's
Is it working now? Is it working now?
back. Oh, that's great. That's great. Oh, all right. Well, any final thoughts for the Troop or American Elsewhere or City of Stairs or any of these things?
Absolutely. And I do want to clarify on City of Stairs, it's my least favorite of the Robert Jackson Bennett
Sure.
books, which is still a very high tier,
Right, right.
highest of tiers, because it's still really, really, really good. It's like I think, I've been a broken record on this because it's all I can talk about is my feelings and through this. But like it's quotable in a way, and I put him on that level of like he's able to bring in like an H.P. Lovecraft type just insane imagination, like not even like a crazy imagination, but like out there insane, which I love. It's
Yeah,
like perfect. His writing is just so like he's such a good writer, but then writes like zany characters, and I'm loving that he's getting more and more popular like through other series, and I'm hoping more people find out about these books because these two right here are just, oops, I should actually face the book. Some of my favorite books. They're just, I
Yeah.
hate this cover. I hate the American Elsewhere cover. I
Yeah.
feel like it's just so bleh. But anyway,
You know
but
what's
I
funny
just
is
love
like
the book so much.
every iteration of that cover is a house getting hit by lightning, like the one
Yeah,
behind me,
right.
and then the
Yeah,
one in the
yeah,
audiobook is like a
yeah. I
little
saw
paper
that.
cutout one. And that's, yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. When I picked up the book, I was like, I saw the lightning hit the house and I'm like, what could this possibly be in reference
Right.
to? And I was like, I just don't get, because like reading the description of the book and then seeing the cover, I'm like, I don't understand
Yeah.
how these are related. But then, of course, you figure it out later on. But
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely related, but also at the same time, I'm like, you could have done just so much more. I don't
yeah,
know. This seems like it's just anyway. But I
yeah,
still, and don't let it detract you, I guess, is what I'm trying to say,
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because the writing is there. It's so good. It's
Yeah,
like it's amazing, very quotable, and then has that like I think Neil Gaiman magic,
yeah,
which I think is a good thing.
for sure. Well, Bryce, where can people follow you? What would you like to plug?
Oh man, I'm on Shelf Centered on YouTube. It's literally just at Shelf Centered. I'm also on Twitter as Centered Shelf because again, I like to confuse everyone. But also I didn't have to use numbers with that, and I was lazy.
Yeah.
But those are the main ones. I'm on Instagram as Shelf Centered 13. I think I threw anyway. So I'm on there too. But I can't thank you enough. I know we've kind of just interacted on Twitter here and there, but
Mhm.
it's been really a pleasure to get to know you. And
Oh, cool.
I've loved your channel for ages, and
Oh, thanks,
just been
man.
a blast getting to know you and hopefully Gabe someday.
Yeah.
But just literally, I love what you guys have been doing. You guys have really just been doing excellent work here, and I keep, I'm cheerleading not only when you describe a book I like, but just your guys' success, because you guys just deserve all kinds of success. You're doing great work here.
Aw, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Like more than you can imagine. That is incredible. Yeah, I really appreciate like
Yeah,
just making friends in the booktube community
exactly.
and collaborating. And we're all here just to talk about the things we love. And there's the occasional booktube Twitter controversy, but I feel like for the most part, I think it's such a like wholesome community because all of
Yeah,
us come from different walks of life, and we
yeah,
have different things we like, but we can all agree that we love fantasy. We can agree that these
yeah,
stories bring out hopefully the best in all of us, and
yeah.
that we all
And we're
get to
both
enjoy.
and we're both in our 30s, even though I can't say that next week. But we're both very young and in our 30s.
Right. Yeah. Two young strapping dudes. So, all right. Well, we are going to get you on for a creators corner. Let's do
I
that
look forward to it.
after the first of the year. That'll be a ton of
Absolutely.
fun.
I can't
It's
wait.
it's actually been a while since we've done one of those, so that'll be a lot of fun. But guys, we are going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. You can reach out to us on Twitter, Discord, and Patreon, which are all linked in the description. As always, with Patreon, you get exclusive content where we're just hanging out, talking about whatever, much like a Creators Corner episode. So tune in for those if you'd like to throw us a few bucks for that kind of stuff. Otherwise, subscribe and like, that helps us out a ton. We will see you next time with, what is the next episode? The next episode is Harry Potter. Oh, and that'll start our episodes of Potter Watch. So hopefully you guys tune in for that. But yeah, until next time, again, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for hanging out with us. I hope you guys enjoyed these books. If you did, let me know down in the comments what you liked about them, and we will see you next time on the Fantasy Files podcast. Okay, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so much fun. I appreciate it. Yeah, I
Dude,
am back here in a heartbeat. You better believe it, man. That was
awesome.
great.
Yeah, I can't
So,
wait to have you back. And
yeah, and
I
man,
know.
every word, seriously, it's so fun to see you guys grow and do well. And it is, you're right, it's a fun community that it's just like, it's cool to just like, we're all on the same team.
Yeah,
Like,
we're all
we're
here
all a
to.
bunch of nerds, like, want to geek out about stuff we love.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Dude, thank you so much
Mm,
for hanging out with me today
absolutely. It was
and
great.
chatting about these.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. It was great. Yeah, let's do this game. Like, clearly, we had tons to talk about. We
Yeah.
like
Oh
wanted to
yeah.
keep going.
Yeah,
We could go for hours.
we could
So
go for
I'm
a
so
while.
excited to do
So
this again.